In the meantime, let's go to this story next. The Democratic Alliance is today pushing ahead with its court bid in the Pretoria High Court over South Africa's legal obligation to arrest Russian President Vladimir Putin should he arrive in South Africa for the upcoming BRICS Summit next month. However, though, it was announced on Wednesday that the Russian leader will not be attending the summit physically. The Russian Federation will instead be represented by Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov. The International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin earlier this year over alleged war crimes in Ukraine by invading Russian forces. Let's bring in SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga on the story. Canny, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. What's the rationale behind the DA's decision to actually go ahead with this matter, considering that confirmation that we received from the presidency that Vladimir Putin will no longer be attending the summit physically?
Well, good morning to you, Algin, and the viewers at home. Of course, the DA is deciding to push forward with this matter despite the presidency's announcement, which renders their original relief that they were seeking, which was a declaratory order, which would compel the arrest of Russian President Vladimir Putin in South Africa. It renders it moot because the situation will not arise. We know that he won't be physically attending the BRICS Summit in August, but instead will be sending his Foreign Minister Lavrov. Now, the issue that remains for the DA that they need the court to further decide on or seek further clarity from the court on is this issue of the executive's obligations under international law when we're dealing with these arrest warrants by the ICC, and we have the subject of that arrest warrant coming to South Africa. What then are the executive's obligations? And I think this question arises out of the fact that when the ICC made the arrest warrant against President Putin public, issues arise around whether or not the executive should effect the arrest, whether or not they had other options. We know that the DA's position was quite overly simplified in that they felt that once you have the request from the ICC, then you effect the arrest, you detain the Russian president, we're speaking on his warrant, and then you surrender him over to the ICC. But we understand from the president's confidential affidavit, rather, that there were more issues at play, politics, intricate diplomatic issues that needed to be considered, and it's not as simple as just giving effect to that warrant of arrest. So today, what the DA is hoping to do, as of now, Algin, as I've stated, we understand that the matter will be proceeding. If that changes, we will update you. But as of now, what the DA is seeking to do is see that they achieve almost a legal precedent in the matter should the instance arise in the future. We know that with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, that's not the first time we've been faced with this kind of scenario. We had the 2015 incident of Omar al-Bashir, and we know how that ended up. So I think the DA wants to get a blueprint which states that this is how we're going to govern international arrest warrants and the executive's obligations under international law. Then, of course, they've stated that they are parts of the president's affidavit, the confidential affidavit that has been made public, that they wish to ventilate further. It is not clear which parts they wish to challenge in the president's affidavit, as the president's affidavit sought to explain why it felt the DA's application was misguided, premature, and sought to explain the confidentiality of the issue of this ICC arrest warrant. And then, of course, like any other party that has had to be forced to go to court to resolve a matter, the DA will be seeking costs on this issue. They are looking for that relief because, remember, the initial reason why they brought the application to the court in the first place is because they were not getting a clear, unequivocal answer from the South African government on whether they would effect this arrest warrant or not. So we expect that proceedings will begin at 10 a.m. in the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria. Of course, as I've mentioned, if the situation does change here in the court, we will update you accordingly. But as we speak now, Algin, proceedings are expected to start at 10 a.m. and then we'll be able to hear some of those submissions specifically with regards to which parts of the president's affidavit they feel need to be challenged and that the court needs to rectify that position further. Over to you in studio.